At this time right now, I'm going to bring up Coach Brian Neal, who's our head coach right now. He's going to give the further introductions as far as introducing Tony. So Coach Brian Neal.
As Joe said, it is my job to introduce Tony. But before I do that, I'm the current basketball, for those of you who don't know, I am the current basketball coach here at Roger Bacon. When Bill went on to Princeton, I was fortunate enough to take over for him. And again, I just, I get to see our players every once in a while when they come home or come to a game or something like that. But this team and this group of guys, I just again want to say thank you for two real reasons. Number one, I hope you guys understand that you are now the guys who have set the standard. You are the standard bearers for our program. And every year, and some of our current players are here, we go back to the things that you guys accomplished and the way that you worked and the way that you did things. And every Roger Bacon basketball team now gets compared to that team. And that's a great thing, because if we can even get close to that level, then we definitely had a successful year. So thank you for that, gentlemen. Secondly, as we all get older, we realize, how many great memories life can produce. And, certainly my marriage and the birth of my two children, obviously are at the top of the list. But, that morning in March, I know you guys will never forget. It's something I'll never forget. And now we've got this guy up here, to thank for putting it down on paper for us. So that forever we'll be able to go back and think back of what a great trip it was. And honestly, that's why we're here today. We're here to celebrate the team, celebrate that accomplishment, and celebrate the work of Tony and the great work that he's done here. So it is my pleasure to get to introduce Tony. Obviously, we're incredibly excited that Tony decided to pursue this as his first book. Although I did read one of the little things that got put out before, kind of the pre-publish, this is a little tidbit of what you could read. And one of the things that Tony wrote on there was he wished he could have had an eyewitness account. I guess if you'd have chosen the right high school, you would. But, Tony's a Cincinnati guy, St. X guy. I know Joe mentioned that already. After he attended St. Xavier, he went on to Ohio University. He graduated with a master's degree in journalism from Ohio University in 2008. Came back home and covered prep sports in Cincinnati for about 3 years. So obviously he knows prep sports here in Cincinnati. So he's got a unique perspective in terms of being able to tell our story. And even though he wasn't a Bacon guy, he had a pretty good grasp of that story. So again, it is my pleasure, and I guess luckily for me, I was the first. I got the ball rolling. So I was the first to talk about the story, and he made it through everybody and got all the way here. So believe me, I'm incredibly excited to introduce him today and hear what he has to say. So please, Tony Neal.
Joe got their jabs in, but I'm wearing St. X blue for a reason. I'll just leave it at that. I can't thank all you guys enough for being here today. This has far exceeded my expectations, and it means more to me than you'll ever know. So thank you, truly. As I step back and reflect on this book and how it came about, I can pinpoint 3 events that explain why we're here today. And 2 of them are obvious. In March 2002, Roger Bacon beat LeBron James and Akron St. Vincent St. Mary to win the state title. And last summer, I resigned from my job to write a book on it. But there's one other event something that's a little more personal to me, something that connects that state title and that resignation, and something that 99% of you don't know about. So I'm going to go ahead and share that. It was October 2007, and I was a grad student studying journalism at Ohio University. I saw a flyer that said MLB.com was looking for summer interns, and that a guy from the website would be coming to campus to interview prospective candidates. So I signed up for the interview. I was one of 12 Bobcats to do so, and my interview lasted 30 minutes, one-on-one. And I spent the final 28 minutes of that interview in silence, listening as a man I had just met explained why I was not a viable candidate for the job. And that's not all. He told me point blank to my face that I would never become a sports writer for lack of experience or talent or both. He advised that I drop out of grad school immediately, take whatever unpaid internship I could find, and eventually pray that one day I could break into the field of sports journalism. I was 22, so that was a fairly depressing interview for me. This probably goes without saying, but I heeded none of this man's advice. I stayed in school, I wrote my thesis, and I graduated in the summer of 2008. And 6 weeks later, I became a sports writer. About 2 years ago, I started thinking about that interview with MLB.com, and I decided to get in touch with the man who told me I would never become a sports writer. Not to puff my chest with pride and tell him that he was wrong, but to let him know what I had been up to, and to ask if he had any advice for a young sports writer trying to make it to the field. I could tell he didn't remember who I was, but pretty soon we were connected on LinkedIn and Facebook. And not long after that, we were having pretty frequent discussions about sports journalism and sports journalism. It was kind of nice. And last March is when it happened. I logged on to Facebook and saw a story on the top of my newsfeed that this man had just posted. It was about the 15-year anniversary of the 1996 Pennsylvania State Final, a game in which a group of underdogs faced a team that had a supremely talented young player named Kobe Bryant. And that game went down to the final seconds, and Kobe's team won. As I read the article, I thought immediately of Roger Bacon, and the fact that they didn't almost beat LeBron, they did beat him. I found myself researching that game, that team, that season, anything I could find. I read stories from the Inquirer, I read the story in USA Today, and the more I read, the more I realized what a great story this was. Even more so than I remembered, and I had remembered it being pretty great. So in less than an hour last March, I went from killing time on Facebook to deciding I was going to quit my job and write a book. And if not for the man who told me I would never become a sports writer, I'm not sure things would have transpired the way they did. So I have to thank him for that interview. There are so many people that I have to thank today, and I'm going to start with the players. Thank you guys so much, and not just for beating LeBron and for winning state, but for being so open and honest with me throughout this entire process about what it took to achieve that and what went into that season. I interviewed 11 of the 13 guys on that team. As Joe mentioned, 5 are here today: Beckham Wyrick, Dave Johnson, Frank Phillips, Tim McCoy, and Marcus Smith. Unfortunately, the other 6 guys that I interviewed either live out of town or are currently out of town and couldn't be here today. But those guys were Josh Hosfeld, Monty St. Clair, Matt Reedy, Nate Wyrick, Leonard Bush, and John Newton. I truly enjoy getting to know all of you guys from the bottom of my heart. And I love listening to your stories, especially the ones that went beyond basketball. And I truly hope that readers will think as highly of you guys as I do. I have to thank all the coaches on that team that I interviewed: Brian Neal, Joe Corcoran, Tom Thompson, Dave Bidwell, Mike Cregan, Mitch Fredericks, and Bobby Holt. The analysis and insight that you guys provided on the players really made this story whole. And all you guys were on staff at Bacon before that year. So you guys did a great job putting that entire season in context for me. And without that, it would have been impossible to really appreciate just how special that season was.